right. Welcome to the Yak Legion podcast with Brad Hicks and Zach Carell. I know this episode's kind of new. We're trying the YouTube video deal. We're going to record some of our podcasts and put them on YouTube as well. Today we got Jason Ricketts on from Jackson Kayak Team. How's it going, man?
Good, brother. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. How's it going, Brad?
Doing pretty good. A little under the weather, but I'm all right.
Well, good deal, man. I know you guys had an eventful weekend yesterday, fishing down there on the Great Miami River. You and your friends, Brad.
Yeah, it was fun. Caught a rare river pike and caught some smallmouth on topwater, so can't beat that.
Did you do any fishing this weekend there, Jason?
No, none. I was thinking about doing it yesterday, but ended up running around and doing some errands and getting some tackle that I needed. So my last river outing, I lost some tackle. My P line let me down, and I sent some stuff sailing through the treetops. So I had to go out
to that American tackle.
I did American Tackle Bushido 20-pound fluorocarbon. It's ties really nice. It ties really nice.
Yeah, so, I need to get me some of that.
You do, man. It's so my double uni knots are about the same size as the 10-pound P line I was using, like the knot thickness. So yeah, it's working out pretty good so far.
You're gonna have to show me how to use it.
Absolutely. It works great, man. It's super clear too. I was pitching a jig out in my front yard yesterday, and the birds were coming down pecking at it. And I was trying to get my phone to record it as I was pitching it. You know, it was pretty neat. But that stuff's great.
That's
Highly
awesome.
recommend it.
Looks like good stuff. That kind of story reminds me. I saw the most epic thing yesterday, man. I was sitting on my mama's front porch. I seen 5 sparrows fighting a hawk, and it was the most epic battle I've ever seen unfold in front of me. It was amazing, man. Like, it made my whole weekend. Like,
wow.
The sparrows won. It's like an underdog story, man. You got these little sparrows whipping up on the hawk. It was amazing.
It is amazing.
I wish you would have gotten video of it.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I didn't do any kayak adventure this weekend. I had to spend time with family. And then my wife's been telling me about fishing too much. I fished every day last weekend, so I had to kind of do some family things this weekend, kind of hang around the house, visit my mom. But hopefully next weekend I can get on some kayak adventures for sure. But
absolutely.
I'll let you start this out, Brad. I know you had a big list of questions for Jason, and I got some questions too, but we'll go ahead and get you started on some things you want to ask the guy.
All right, cool. I was just going to start. How did you get into kayak bass fishing, and what was your first kayak?
First kayak I bought for Bass Pro, I want to say it was probably 6 years ago. It was an Ascend FS10, if I remember right. It was a sit inside. So I think it was the FS series. I bought that and I was super stoked. So a couple of friends of mine were kayaking, and they had like the sit inside kayaks with the skirts on them, you know, kind of a mix between recreational and whitewater kayaks. And I saw them posting up on Facebook all the time, and I'm like, man, that looks fun. I want to get me a kayak. So Father's Day, I finally, thanks to my wife, I was able to purchase my first kayak from Bass Pro after scouting them for a little while. So I think I paid like $500. And that Father's Day, my buddy's like, hey man, we're hitting the water. Let's go. You're invited. I said, cool, man. So I didn't have a trailer or even a truck at the time, right? So I had a Nissan Altima, and I bothered my father-in-law's truck, threw the kayak in the back of it, and went down to Little Miami River. There's a launch there called Carl Rahi Launch. Now, typically Carl Rahi Launch, when you launch out of there, you're launching out in inches of water. Right? To the left, it's all drag. It's unavoidable. You're going to drag. To the right, it's inches of water, but then it kind of deepens up and then shallows, and then you're fine. And so we had like, I don't know, maybe 8 straight days of rain back then. Like it was crazy. So the river was up almost 14 feet. So what normally is only inches of water was feet at this point in time. And so the water level was up in the treetops. So as you can imagine, like, these are guys I rode motorcycles with, sport bikes, and we're used to adrenaline and stuff like that. I was like, hey, no problem. We can handle this. It's just water. It was the dumbest decision I ever made. One of the smart things I actually did do was have a life vest on. and it wasn't just any typical life vest. It was like a water sports life vest, so it fastened, had multiple fastens, you know, and it fit me pretty tight and it was snug. So I'm looking at that river and I'm like, man, I don't know about this. I started having second thoughts, you know, and like that water is just raging, dude. It was so high, it was just raging. So my one buddy, he goes down the water and he launches and he's gone. His dad launched. He was on a sit-on top kayak and he went and he was gone. I said, okay, cool, man, I got this. So I had sat down inside mine. First time I was ever in a kayak, and it just kind of scooted my way to the water. And then the current started taking me sideways. Well, as I was going sideways, there was a big tree branch here because, mind you, the water level's up in the treetop. So I went to duck like this, and when I ducked, the whole kayak flipped upside down.
Oh yeah.
and so the CFS was something insane, 7,000, 8,000 for that river. That's absolutely insane. Water levels at 40. I hit every treetop going down through there, and you know, one of the things obviously was the life vest that saved me. The second thing that saved me is when I went whitewater rafting, they tell you if you ever go out, float and put your feet out in front of you. And you know, I was doing that, and I still had a hold of my kayak. I wasn't going to let go of this $500 kayak I bought. But then my legs started getting tangled in the treetops, and it pulled me under a couple times. Right. So I'm like, oh my God! And I finally got my legs free, put them back in front of me, and then my buddy's dad had swung around on his kayak, got to the shore, and stuck his paddle out. And when he stuck his paddle out, I was able to grab his paddle, grab my boat, and pull myself to shore. But my legs were like battered and bruised, and you know, I sat there. I was like, man, I just almost lost my life on Father's Day trying to get into this kayak fishing sport, right? And so his dad had to talk to me. He goes, listen, man. He goes, you don't have to go through with this. You know, you don't have to go through with it. I said, I'm done. So I made my way back through the woods with a kayak and got back to the truck and went home. And little did I find out that my buddy actually was so scared after seeing me go in the water, he scrambled up a riverbank. He was hiding up on top of the hill because of water. So the whole thing was just stupid. Lack of experience, you know what I mean, mixed with stupidity and a cheap kayak. Now, do I recommend ever doing that? No, but could I handle that today? Absolutely. In a premium kayak, I could have nailed that any day of the week. But so my first getting into kayak fishing, the sport, was, you know, life endangering. So
Yeah.
I hated that kayak so much. I hated that kayak because even on any other outings, like I went to East Fork Lake and it was perfectly calm and flat. I couldn't sneeze without the thing wanting to tip over. It was the most ridiculous thing in the world, and it wouldn't go straight. It would not track straight to save your life, and it's a 10-foot kayak. So you paddle, and it would just go like this, like a rudder. Oh, it drove me insane. I hated it. I ended up trading that for a pistol.
Mixed reviews about the Ascend kayaks, good and bad. Honestly, I've heard more bad about their instability.
Yeah, they're terrible. You know, this is not me brand bashing by any means. I'm talking about my own personal experience. I'm sure individuals out there have had better experiences, and that's fine if they have. This is my personal opinion. Experience. It was terrible. So I traded that for a gun. And
what kind of gun you traded for?
A Smith and Wesson MVP. So I traded that up, and so the rest of the season I didn't have a kayak, but I was kind of on the fence. Do I want to stay into this, or do I just let it go? You know, because I go through so many hobbies. It's unreal. So I was watching more YouTube videos. And I started researching, you know, what's the most stable kayak. Because at the time I was probably pushing 260 or 270. I was a lot bigger than I am now. And so then I come across the big rig. Everybody's doing YouTube videos on the OG big rig, right? And I was like, cool, man. You know, I started searching big rigs in Cincinnati for sale. And I got on Craigslist, and then I found Loveland Canoe and Kayak. And I was like, oh, okay. I never heard of Loveland Canoe and Kayak, right? Where's that? I heard of Morgan's Canoe because where I went to school at, Morgan's was a livery down in that town, and never heard of Loveland Canoe and Kayak. So I called and then went down there, and that's the first time I met Mark, the owner, and he had this beautiful Dorado Jackson kayak big rig in there, the matching Dorado 25 quart Orion cooler. And he goes, hey, you know, I've had this for a couple of years. It was a demo. This is what I can do for you. And he goes, do you need a paddle? I said, yeah, no, I need a paddle too. So he hooked me up, and he gave me a killer deal. I got the kayak, the cooler, and the paddle all for, you know, way cheap. And then so my first outing on the big rig was at East Fork Lake crappie fishing. I fell in love. It was night and day difference.
Oh yeah.
So I was able to build my confidence up, and from there it's been downhill. I think 5 months later, I ordered a custom kayak from him
Hmm.
and blew him up on social media for him taking care of me. And then he called me one time. I think I was on my way out of town, maybe on a little vacation or something. He called me. He goes, "Hey man, I'm looking for somebody to kind of represent us in the area. Do you know anybody be interested?" And it was kind of a fishing question, So I was like, "Yeah, it's me." He goes, "I was hoping you'd say that." And the rest has been history, man. So I've had I work hard for the guy, rep him. I rep him every single day. It's a second full-time job, and that's been, I guess that's going on about 6 years now. So that's how I got into it, man. Kind of a crazy story, but
it is crazy.
Yeah, that is, man.
Mark is a cool guy. I like him a lot.
he's a really good guy. It's in 6 years I think there's only one person that said anything bad about him, and the one person we've have kind of like a shop rift with. It's another shop that's in the area, but he's a great guy, man. He is.
He is.
Guy.
I know. I met him at the first Loveland Canoe and Kayak tournament you guys put on, and he seemed like just a real genuine fellow.
Yeah,
real nice guy. And I said thanks for putting on the tournament, and hoping he'd do some more throughout the year. And he's, everyone down there at the Loveland Canoe and Kayak, y'all seem like real good people. You are definitely passionate about kayak fishing, just like we are. And
absolutely.
You guys do a lot for the community down here, for the kayaking community, and make new people, new kayak fishermen all the time. People come out there and try out kayaks, and they instantly get addicted to it, man.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're all about, man. We are all about it.
Well, the cool thing about our shop down there too is that if you ever just want to stop by and try a kayak out, we're right on the water, so it's free to demo it. We'll put you right on the water right then and there. But if you want to make a trip out of it, I know other locations they charge you $100 to do that, $100 to take you out, meet with you, let you demo the kayak, and that's it. And for me, I think it's kind of outrageous to charge that. So we offer that for free, personalized lesson on your kayak right there on the water. And then if you ever want to rent it for like a half day, like a 5-mile trip, it's only $45. And if you decide to buy it, that $45 goes towards the price of the kayak. So it's really cool. We really take care of our people down there, man. So
yeah, that's a good idea. Awesome thing you stuck with kayak fishing and not getting frustrated with it after your accident, first time with it. You do stuff for Blue Sky now, I know, and Jackson. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So February of this year. Now, mind you, I've been repping Jackson in Cincinnati through Mark as an ambassador for 5 or 6 years now. And then this year I decided to start the Loveland team, right? And we came on as a title sponsor for Michigan, Ohio Kayak Trail. And we helped put on the Indian Lake tournament. Well, first it was Kaiser, then it became Indian Lake. So, Aaron Steiger had caught wind of everything that I was doing down here, and then offered us the title sponsorship to jump on board. And then he and I chatted, and he goes, "Man, it's a no-brainer." He goes, "You're killing it down here. I want to bring you on board with Jackson directly." And I said, "That's great, man." I was pumped up, right? Because now you're going right to the brand. So, I said, "Hey, keep me posted about Blue Sky. I know you guys just launched, Blue Sky." And the next day he called me. He goes, "Hey, man, you said something about Blue Sky. Is that something you'd be interested in?" I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "So it's done. You're on the team. You're one of 10 people in the entire globe right now on Blue Sky team."
That's awesome.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome? So I was like, man, done deal. And I busted my butt ever since, repping them. And I'm on social media every single day, all hours of the day.
I was about to say, you took over their Blue Sky Instagram.
I did.
Me, right?
Yeah. So it was a Blue Sky Instagram takeover. So now I'm in charge of the Blue Sky page. For now, I'm helping the main media guy out. I don't know how long it'll be, but for right now, it's in my hands. So pretty cool stuff,
awesome,
man. Yeah. So I got the work is unreal, right? I mean, you think about repping a brand and to the general public, like, yeah, that sounds awesome, but you don't understand the work that's behind it. It's more than just smiling with a fish in your hand. You know, you got to be very active on the Facebook groups. You have to, but the forums, if you see somebody post a problem, you got to, try to respond to that problem to help get it resolved and work with customer service and a lot of team exposure and dealers in the area, a little bit of traveling, a lot of Facebook stuff and a lot of Instagram stuff. So, I mean, it is a second full-time job. You got to work really hard at doing.
And that goes for any team you're on. Like, for me, joining Team Bonafide, I'm not like a regional guy or anything, but I could do some similar stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So
we have incentive and perks, that
Yeah.
it's not to be disclosed. Obviously, it's within the team, but we have some great stuff within, that compensates us and rewards us for our work and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I'm a guy, if I say, hey, I'm going to do something and I give you my word, I'm going to do it, you're going to get 110% out of me all the time with it. It's never going to be, half butt. It's going to be all or nothing,
Yeah. I'm the same way. I got a lot of drive when it comes to kayaks.
Yeah, me too. And that's what you got to have. It's somebody else, even with Mark and Loveland Canoe and Kayak. I mean, his business, it depends on, not the whole business, but the fishing aspect depends on what I'm doing. It depends on me to get out there and create the exposure. So I've taken over the whole fishing side of his business and the marketing and everything. I will draw it all up and present it to him. If he likes it, gives me a thumbs up and I go live with it, So
That's awesome.
Hence the fishing team,
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. Now about the fishing, did you fish before you kayak or did you fish after you got into kayaking?
Oh, I've been fishing my whole life. So as a kid, we used to go down to Florida, sometimes for the entire summer and then come back. So I've been saltwater fishing, freshwater fishing. I've done it all. So throwing cast nets, catching catfish. I've always had a huge love for big catfish.
Oh, me too, brother. I saw you catch that cast net. We went out to East Fork last weekend. And
yeah, that's right.
You've thrown it a time or two.
Yeah, absolutely. On the blue sky, it was a little challenging just because I kept getting snagged all over everything. So generally when I'm on a kayak, I'll take the seat and I'll take everything off of it. So it's just like a flat platform. I'll go out, I'll catch my bait, come back in, and then load up, right? But on that time, I had all my fishing poles, my paddle, the seat, the fish finder, and then everything all over my vest. I was just getting snagged up left and right. But all the wave runners were busting up the bait too, and we had a heck of a time trying to find it.
That was nuts, man. It was like 2 to 3 foot waves hitting us, and the wind was whipping probably 20 miles an hour. And you had jet skiers, and you had the pleasure boaters, but man, we saw them catfish. They were busting the surface, rolling the surface, man, and
big time.
That's what kept us out there for so long. I think we would have been done if we wasn't seeing them cats. But that was a nice day, man. I want to go back bad.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely go back.
Is that why they don't do tournaments on that lake? Just because of the busyness and the waves?
Yeah, I think that's the
I've
number
seen
one
the
reason.
bass boat tournaments out there at East Fork.
Yeah.
Kayak tournament out there, but I have seen, and I knew the Boar's Head down there in Batavia, they do crappie tournaments out there at East Fork. So there's a few
crappie fishing
on that lake for crappie.
I think the most part people are intimidated by East Fork because at some points it's like 100 feet deep, right? And it's such a big, busy lake that kayakers they don't want to mess with it. But there's some good fish in there, and there's some really good hybrid fish in there.
Oh, yeah, that's what I've heard.
And there's some places at East Fork you could get away from the bigger boats. There's a lot of tributaries. There's a lot of coves. There's the river that flows into it. You don't really see a lot of people flying up and down those areas of the lake, the no wake areas. So there's some places you can get away from the pleasure boaters out at East Fork.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah, you got to know where to go, but absolutely.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about your tournament experience? Excuse me.
Yeah. So this year is actually the first time I've ever even competed in tournaments.
Okay.
So in the past, I've always just more of a one-on-one person. I like that I guess for lack of a better word, intimate fishing experience. You get somebody new and you're kind of teaching the ropes and you give them that one-on-one tutorial about how to do stuff. And that's where I've always thrived. A couple of buddies going out there and getting exposure for the brand, taking some awesome pictures and just teaching people how to fish. Well, this year with the fishing team, I wanted to kind of take it in a new direction and get into tournament fishing. One thing I struggle with as an individual is that I'm way too competitive.
Yeah.
So if you put tournament and compete, and then it kind of makes it's work. It's not fun fishing anymore. It's work fishing,
Yeah.
and that's not something, I have a job where it's really hectic and fast paced, my full-time job. And so for me, the tournament side of it, I like it, but then I don't, for that very reason. I go out, I want to kind of relax and be fun and hang out with the guys, that kind of stuff. I really don't want to feel like I have to, work
Yeah.
to go
Yeah, you
fishing.
got a lot of sponsors for somebody that doesn't do tournaments. Like I always thought, like you would have to be a well performer at a tournament to get kind of the sponsors that you're at. Like, how did you manage that without getting your name in the tournament game?
Well, I have done some tournaments, but besides that, for the most part, people want exposure and they want a stand-up person to represent their companies. So you don't have to be a big tournament guy to get these
Oh, yeah.
sponsors lined up. You just have to work. You have to really work hard. And I'm actually kind of glad I was thinking about this today, so I'm glad you brought it up about sponsorships, ambassadorships, and stuff like that. So that works two ways. All right. So if a company reaches out and says, hey, would you like to represent us? This is what we can offer you. You have a decision to make. Now, the decision that you have to make as an individual is you're tying your name on that. So any person that you sell that product to is a direct representation of yourself. Okay. So if that product is something that you wouldn't sell your best friend, then don't tie your name on it to get a discount. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, you get a discount, but is the discount worth the time that you're going to sacrifice representing that company? So, Brad, you're some construction like carpentry work. Is that what you do?
Yeah, remodeling, home remodeling.
So, do you bid by the job or do you bid out labor by the hour?
It depends. Right now, we're doing by the hour, but most of the time it's a job.
Okay. So, what you got to figure out in this industry is what's your hourly worth? What are you worth per hour? And then factor in how many hours that you're representing that company, and then total that up and see what your savings are compared to their discount.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, it's cool to say, hey, I'm sponsored by XYZ, oh, that's great. But what is XYZ doing for you in return for all the hours that you put in for them? So it's a two-way street, right? Everybody that I have an association with is companies that I believe in,
Mm-hmm.
I believe in American Tackle. I think they have great products. I think if you ever want to build your rods, they have great components. I believe in their Bushido line. I believe in their crankbait line. I ordered some twisty tail, curly tail grubs from them. And, the first time my son throws them out and he hooks he's 6 years old. First time he threw it out, he hooked a crappie, believing they're baits, you know what I mean? Like they're Coyote Polarized, another brand that I'm sponsored by, which I was.
Compare them. They look awful sharp.
Oh, they're awesome. Right. And so most companies give you a discount. She actually, the lady who owns that, sent me free sunglasses.
Wow.
She's like,
That's
here,
awesome.
Here. Yeah. Try them out. Let me know what you think. And I put them on. It was night and day difference. I was seeing fish all over the place, and they float too. Another company I really believe in. I said, okay, cool. I can tie my name to Coyote Polarized. Power Pole Micro Anchor. Another company. They're well known. They're great. And the list goes on from there. So it. I do a lot of representation for them. If you notice on all my social media tags, they're always tagged in there. I try to make 2 posts a week minimum with all those guys in there, and then talk about it to the public. And I was fishing with 2 buddies. Was it Thursday? I think Thursday night. I got home probably about midnight, Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. One guy, first time I ever met him, said, "Hey man, do you have any polarized glasses?" He was new to kayak fishing, and I had heard previously that he flipped his kayak a couple times. His Hobie, believe it or not, it lost a lot of his stuff. And so I said, "Hey, do you have polarized sunglasses?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, here you go now." And I gave him the pair off my head. I said, "Keep them, use them. Tell me what you think. Don't worry about them. If you go in there again, these are going to float. You don't have to worry about losing these." So, and I gave him a pair. And that's the kind of brand stuff that you're going to do, because he's going to wear them and then he's going to share, "Hey, where'd you get these glasses?" And then it builds and builds and builds and builds. So you got to think of it from that marketing side. So all my sponsorships and stuff, and I've got some couple more. I've turned some down. I've turned down another fishing team offer because I just didn't feel like it was legit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on a few more. Some people have reached out, so we'll see how it goes. you don't want to have too many because then you're doing injustice to all your other ones because you can't represent
Yeah.
the way that you should, But also, I have a couple that I'm thinking about dropping, and I'm dropping them because I'm doing the work for them. The discount's not worth the work, and I'm not getting any representation back. They're not sharing my stuff,
Hmm.
and that's an issue with me too because that has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm giving them a service that I'm putting a lot of hours in for a minimal return. Return on investment. Everybody wants to hear that ROI. So, and yeah, man. So if they can't give me back a justified amount in my head, what I think I'm worth and what I'm doing for them, then obviously it's not going to work out, and they can find somebody else. So, it's ambassadorships are a lot of hard work, but they can be rewarding if you're with the right people. There's a lot of people out there that's going to take advantage of you. Oh, you're
Hmm.
on a fishing team? Oh man, that's great. Here's what I got. It's as soon as they find out you're on a fishing team, it's a whole new world. So
Yeah.
you'll
Uh,
find that
We're
out
all
too.
on the American tax right now.
yeah.
I know that Austin Todd from American Tackle appreciates everything because I see that he touches almost every one of my posts that I tag in.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, he cares, and he's hooked me up with some additional swag and stuff like that. So I know that he's all in. And look at
Yeah.
what he did for John Graves, invited him down to ICAST.
That's
Oh, yeah.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
We have
We're
an
gonna have him
episode
on
coming with
here after he gets back from ICAST. Be interesting.
going to be talking about ICAST. That's going to be cool.
Yeah,
John Gray's a
absolutely.
great guy too, man. He's very entertaining to back fish with, and
Yeah, he is.
he's very skilled at what he does. Very awesome dude.
So he's got a new nickname. We call him Crankbait Johnny now.
Yeah.
I saw
started
that.
Oh, he's a good dude.
Well, I'm glad you hit on the point about not having to be a tournament hammer to get sponsors.
You don't have to be a big winner to get a sponsor. You just got to put in the hard work.
Yeah.
You seem like marketing. You got the face for marketing. You're constantly consistent on Facebook, and that's just purely amazing, man. I mean, I always thought when I first got into this game, this kayak fishing, I thought, man, you had to be a winner, top 10, top 5 winner to get these sponsors.
Same here.
And it just goes to show that hard work and determination. You don't need to be number one. You don't need to be the top winner in the tournaments, man. You can have sponsors and you can get involved in this industry without being a pro.
Absolutely. So you have to look at it like this too. Yeah, of course, some sponsors are going to like the pros.
Yeah.
But in the kayak fishing world, if you look at all the pros and you look at guys that win them, and this is no knock against them because they are phenomenal anglers. I hope one day I can be on their level. But you have, let's say, I don't know how many people are in the world, but let's say the demographic of anglers may be 10% of what's in the world. Okay. You have a couple of tournament winners who don't get the exposure out on social media, but only in their small little group of anglers. Okay. So they said, yeah, I got a power puller, I got a torpedo on my boat, da 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 da. That's great. So if you do that and you win a tournament, and you say thanks to power pull and thanks to torpedo or whoever else, and it's only within that small clique, then you're really not getting the other 10% of anglers that are out there across the U.S. because all of them may not tournament fish, right? No. Not all of them may follow the KBF trail or the Mayo trail or the Buckeye kayak fishing trail and all that kind of stuff, but they are on social media. So if you do a good job of getting out there and representing the companies on social media, getting twice a week, expanding out to the general audience, well, then you just took those sponsors from a small clique of competitive kayak anglers to a whole broad spectrum of just anglers in general. You follow me?
Yep.
So there's a lot of people who like to competitively fish, but there's a lot more that don't. And so what I do is kind of, I'll appeal to those who may competitively fish, and we'll go to the tournaments and shake hands with them, stuff like that, hang out, show them my boat, stuff like that. But I really try to appeal to the general audience that's not competitive anglers, because they matter too. You don't have to be a huge competitor, and there's a lot of guys out there who don't compete and they use the same products. So where's their representation at?
Right.
I want to be a representative for that audience.
That's a good point. Are you a KBF member?
I am. Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if you were or not. You talked about starting your own river trail and becoming KBF affiliated. You got any plans you could share?
Yeah. So I can't really share them right now, I should say. There's there's some things I'm putting in work. Aaron and I talked about a few things, and then I might, I might try to get paired up with another trail. And if that happens, if I'm on the board for that other trail, then what will happen is we'll have a lake division and a river division. That's what I'm hoping. This is all just, we literally just started whispering this maybe 2 months ago when I made that post.
Right.
I want it to be, I think it's just starting out. If I'm able to do this trail, it's just going to be an Ohio-based trail for now. And then we can expand to like Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia to do all the surrounding states. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try that out. We'll do Ohio. We'll hit the Four Corners in Central Ohio. So everybody from all around the state will be able to do it. And yeah, man, start out doing
that. Makes me extremely excited, man. I mean, I'm ready for it. That's awesome. I know a lot of guys that are ready for river tournaments in this area too.
Absolutely, river guys don't get any love. They don't. We don't get any love at all. I've always been a huge river guy, and I'm a river guy too that doesn't necessarily post a lot of my catches on social media because for me, when I'm out on the river, it's an intimate experience, and I just want that to be with me.
Yeah.
So if I ever die, I want my ashes scattered on the Little Miami River, right? So that's.
And you've never fished the Great Miami either, have you?
Never. No, I feel like
we're gonna have to keep up here.
Yeah, I do. Actually, no, I want to take that back. Have I ever kayak fished the Great Miami? No. Have I ever fished it just on a bank? One time, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, actually twice. I fished it with a buddy trying to get some saugeye, and then I went on my own. So twice I fished it. But
most of it's like urban fishing through cities and stuff, but there is a lot of little scenic stretches throughout that river. So
yeah,
it's nothing like the Little Miami at all.
No, I can imagine. It's big. It's a big river.
Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming at times, especially through downtown Dayton and Hamilton and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, a lot of low head dams on it, right?
Yeah, they're actually going through the process right now of taking those out.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah, to restore the river back to its like natural state.
I heard that was a thing. Now that all the old time factories and stuff are not depending on them, that they're going to knock it down.
Yeah, which I don't know what it's going to do to any of my spots, but
yeah, that kind of changes the fishing, I imagine, because usually they still had dams are good fishing spots, but they're not exactly safe for kayaks.
No.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a win-lose, I guess, for this situation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We portaged around a dam just yesterday on our river trip, so
yeah,
it was a little tiny low head, but
they're awful dangerous. People get killed on them all the time.
If you don't notice them, yeah, it's lights out. Yeah, you wouldn't think even like the one that's downtown Hamilton. It's probably only I think it's an 8-foot drop, if that, But it's what's underneath because you get sucked down inside there and you can't get out. So it's pretty dangerous stuff.
The second dam in Hamilton's pretty big, though. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't know if I have or not.
There's actually 2 down there. The second one's pretty big.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
So, have you guys fished the Ohio River?
Oh, yeah.
I have it.
Yeah. Exactly. See, I live right off the Ohio River. Like, I can hit it with a golf ball. It's that close to me. I fished on there plenty of times. Yeah, it's good fishing.
It's a lot of fun. I've been out there on a boat catfishing. I've even took my Hobie out a couple weekends ago out of Shawnee Marina down there in Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's a good place.
On the Ohio, and I was impressed with it. It performed well. You got to understand though, when you get those big Ohio River currents versus like Little Miami River, I mean those currents are serious. They're strong, and man, I really had to pedal out of them. Once I got going down river and pedaling my way back up, I had to struggle. I'm a big guy myself, and not exactly the most athletic type, and my legs are cramping. I mean, it was a struggle to get up the river. So that's definitely a very new experience, a different experience than
absolutely
these smaller rivers because those currents are scary and those currents are serious.
I think with anybody that fishes the Ohio for the first time, your best bet is to, when you're first starting out, your day on the river is to go upriver, because your energy level at the end of a fishing day is kind of down. So if you have to go against the current when your energy level is kind of down, you're not going to have fun getting back. So I would go upriver, then float down, and also bring a buddy and don't go out into the middle of the water. Stay to the side if you're a beginner. But there's a lot of good fishing. So it's really fun. It's not as intimidating as you would think it is. I've been on it when it's flooded. I fished on it when it's flooded. and I really enjoy the Ohio River. It's dirty in some spots, you know. It really makes you kind of sad when you see the garbage build up on the side in some areas, you know. But yeah,
We're
there's a
gonna have
lot
to
of
get
good
out there
fishing.
together.
Yeah, let me know, man. I'm
I've
5
never
minutes
been on
from the
the
boat
Ohio.
dock.
That's awesome.
Well, we got to change that.
I know.
Really good fishing.
Well, what are your go-to baits for the Little Miami in the Ohio? I mean,
Get into the
anything
fishing.
special? Huh?
Get into the fishing question. Yeah, boy.
So my go-to in Little Miami River, this is a well-known guy named Vic Humer, right? And he makes a real soft, fleshy plastic. Well, obviously soft plastic. It's a paddle tail, and it's gold with black flake on top, and kind of like an off-white underbelly.
Uh-huh.
And I absolutely hammer the smallmouth.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones. But you're only going to get about 2 hits before it's destroyed. All right.
Yeah,
So
me and
it's
Zach, we both use the curly shad quite a bit.
yeah, it's a good one.
That one is my favorite.
Yeah.
So that big one that I think it was like 15, I think it was 15-inch, the one I just caught a couple weeks ago. That was off of a chatterbait, crawl color chatterbait, with a Z-Man crawl imitation on the end of it.
Uh-huh.
And yes, I pretty much threw that on top of its head. It didn't take any time for that to hit. And yeah, man. So it's usually my go-to. So a little education on Little Miami River and what they like. There's a lot of fish there called darters, and if you ever just kind of go in the current and just sit still and don't move but look down, you'll start to see them come out of rocks, and they'll do that exactly what their name says. They'll dart. So they'll go from rock to rock to rock. And these fish are brown. They look like kind of like a golden brown with a little bit of green on them. And then you see a lot of different crayfish and stuff like that. So if you ever read Steve Coomer's book, The Little Miami River, I don't know if you guys have ever read that or not. Excellent book. It's like the Little Miami River Bible, right? So you keep that stuff. One of the things he said is that people use crawl imitations that are too big and minnow imitations that are too small. Right. Yep. So you got to think of what you're doing. You're taking something that hurts fish and you're making it too big, and you're taking something that they love to eat and you're making it too small. So as human beings, if you see a steak, do you want a 4-ounce steak or do you want a 20-ounce ribeye? Right. What makes sense to you? So, and I took that and that's why I like the Z-Man crawl imitation so much, because if you look at them, they're only about this big. And they have really small pinchers on them. So the smallmouth will go and say they find a crawfish, and they'll start pecking at its pinchers first to kind of rip the pinchers off, because they don't have to get their lips all tore up. And so if they find one, they don't have to worry about that. They gobble it up. Well, big minnows, they work phenomenal. So Bass Pro actually makes a jerkbait, shallow water floating jerkbait, and it's like a BP Pro special, tourney special or something. You get them for like a couple bucks, and I buy them up because they're gold. They're gold and kind of remind me of that darter that goes out there, that brownish gold color, and I'll use that. And I do really well on those too. So they go through the water really good.
So say you're going down Little Miami River, the birds are chirping, Mr. Snapping Turtle's poking his head up above the water. And you got some of those paddle tails. What are you throwing at? Like, where are you trying to find these smallmouth down the river?
So sometimes smallmouth will hang out in moving water, current. Other times they're holding tight to structure. If the water's still, I don't mess with still water. It makes no sense to me. So believe it or not, man, they love the rapids. They'll go down those riffles and dart across there and chase stuff. So let's say you got a riffle coming down. One of my favorite spots, a riffle comes down, a big old eddy right here, and the water kind of moves out this way. And I'll position my boat to where I'm right on the seam of that eddy and that riffle. And I will throw into the riffle and let it bring itself down naturally. So if you take a fluke, like a caffeine shad fluke, weightless on maybe a 3 or 4/0 offset hook, right? Throw it up there, use your spinning reel, throw it up there, and just let the water bring it down. You'd be surprised how many times it'll get smashed coming down through the rapids. And then I'll work the seams real hard. So what I don't do is give it an unnatural presentation, right? You don't see bait fish swimming upstream. So if you're up above the riffle and you're casting down and bringing it up, that doesn't make any sense. There ain't no little 2-inch bait fish that's going to be able to handle that. So I always bring it down with the water. I always bring it with the seams. I'm always hitting a lot of structure. I'm always watching the riverbanks. You have to watch the riverbanks because it could be subtle, but you're going to see something pop or move or twirl, where you're going to see a beaver hole there and there'll be, something laying around there. You got to watch the riverbanks, and you got to, if you look on the river, and I take my paddle and I'll dip it down into the water actually. So if the water is just kind of moving and I don't know the depth, I'm going to test the depth. Normally it's going to be between 2 and 4 feet. Little Miami is pretty shallow. I'll cover the touch my paddle down, see the depth, and I'm going to look over to the riverbanks. And if I see any like rock that I see on the riverbank, I know that's an underhanging rock. So the rock's going to be here, the water's going to be underneath there, and that's a prime spot for something to be hanging out. And so I'll try to skip over there. I'll bring it. I'll throw up past that rock, and then as soon as I get close to the rock, I slow down my reeling. Just real slow. If anything's hiding under there, it could be a channel or shovel or whatever, man, it's going to come out and pop it. So crankbaits, I do like crankbaits, shad color crankbaits, or anything brown. Brown and kind of bright. I do like those. There's a lot of shad in the Little Miami River too. So yeah, I'll bring those down. Just start bouncing them off everything. And the thing with river fishing, you can't be scared to lose your stuff. And also you don't need to bring your most expensive gear. Yeah. So, some lures are like $16 to $20. Leave those at home. Okay. It's the river. You don't need that stuff here. So I usually go to Bass Pro and I'll buy all the cheapy stuff and I'll start working those. And then I'll go to Vic Coomer and buy the Coomer baits, because you can get those for $4 or $5 a pack, and just use your lead head, your round lead jig heads and stuff like that. So
you're not throwing the jackhammer on the river?
I don't own the jackhammer. I'm a Z-Man fanboy, but you're not gonna see me pay $20 for a chatterbait. It's not.
Yeah, same here.
Nope.
Yeah, I can't merit paying $20 for a lure and then losing it on a log and not be able to get it back.
Hey, so when I lost that chatterbait, I had no idea that my P line was frayed, right? And I just ring back and cast it. And as soon as I cast, it just broke and went sailing. Well, I was pissed because that was a $7 freaking setup right there. And I'm like, man, so if I was mad about $7, I'd be really mad about $20.
Oh yeah. Hey, so I'm guessing you're using the Project Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite.
Some of my favorite too. Absolutely. And then the original chatterbaits work good too,
Yeah, they are. They're not too bad. For some reason, I just like the hook on the Project Z.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do on the river too is if I see a big rock or something in the water, the bigger the rock, the bigger the break it's going to create, right? So if you have a big boulder like here, and the water is going to go around it. It's not going to go perfectly around it and then cut down. It's going to create kind of like an eddy right behind that rock. So if you throw your bait upstream and you come and you bounce it off that rock, let's say it's curly tail grub, for instance, motor oil with some flake in it, and you bounce it off that's going to catch any attention of any fish that's hiding behind that rock. And as soon as that bait just floats past, so if you throw up and you reel down and you purposely hit that, just let your line go slack for a minute. Let the water do its thing naturally, and that fish will come out and just grab it, and it's gone.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah, these aren't lake fish. Don't get it twisted. If you're a lake guy, don't think you're going to the river and with all your bass lake gear and think you're going to slaughter the fish, because you're going to get spanked. You're going to go home crying to your old lady, because it's not lake fishing.
It's definitely a different game. I fished lakes growing up with my dad. Started river fishing in about 2012, I think. And I would go every 5 trips, maybe catch 1 or 2 fish. I'm like, what is going on, man? So I hit the forums and everything, and I started reading and just learning, soaking everything in. I'm to the point now where it's getting easier finding those fish on the river.
Yeah,
but those
absolutely.
first couple of years, man, it was rough.
They're aggressive. The smallmouth bass on the river are aggressive. They hit like freight trains. Even the smallest one, 12-inch. A 12-inch smallmouth bass on a river will feel like a 17 or 18-inch in a lake,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
especially when they do those awesome, perfect 10 aerials going all the way across
the
horizon.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
and be prepared, because just because you throw them for smallmouth, well, there's a lot of other species in that water. It's going to hit that same bait, especially flatheads. I've caught a flathead off a crankbait. So it's
Justin caught a nice sized catfish yesterday, fishing for smallmouth.
Yeah,
pulled it out of the water. I don't know how big it was, but it was good size.
Yeah,
was
I love
impressive.
catfish.
I caught that pike topwater yesterday, fishing in an area where I thought smallmouth would be. So yeah, you just never know what you're going to catch.
I took John Graves the first time he ever went river fishing. I took him on. I think it was like a 10-mile trip, and we went from Lake Isabella all the way down to Milford. And he was, man, we got about towards the end of that trip, and he was beat. I mean, he was beat. I
They
could see
were
it on his
down.
eyes. He was tired, man. You know, he's kind of talking slow, and I could just tell he's wore out. But he had a blast. You know, he had a really good time. And so there's this one little secret spot. I love it so much because if you don't pay attention, you'll miss it. And I was kind of ahead of him, and I made my way back through there. And one, I really enjoy catching gar. A lot of people hate gar. They talk trash about gar, but gar is, to me, is one of the funnest fish ever.
I think they're
And
fun too.
I just, and one thing that makes them really cool is that they appear like ghosts. You know, you don't see them, and all of a sudden you just see this figure hover up to the top of the water. Then they're there. Right? It is the most awesome thing ever. And so using that same minnow I was talking about that you can get at Bass Pro for just a couple bucks. I don't know the name of it, but it's like a shallow diving jerk bait kind of thing. So I'll throw that out and I'll just let it sit on the water. And I'll just wait because generally the gar like to hide out under the trees with shade and stuff like that. And then I'll just slowly bring it to my bait or bring it to me, bring it to the boat. And then I see the gar chasing it and the gar will kind of snap at it. Right. And so both of them are right up at the top of the water column. And I just did this a couple weeks ago. I'll send you a picture of it. And so, once the gar is looking at it and I see the gar kind of lose interest and move away, I'll jerk it like that. And that gar comes back around, then it'll move close and then just snap on it.
That's awesome.
The one, and it's so cool because it's right there. You're inches away from it happening, and you get to see the interaction between the gar and the fish, and you get to see him bite down on it. And this gar I hooked, I think it was like 20 something inches. Wasn't huge by any means, but it was still cool. When he bit down on it, his mouth was the sides of his mouth were so skinny that it actually got snagged in between the gap of the treble hook. So he wasn't hooked. It was just that when he went down, when he closed his mouth, it went between the gap, and the barb of the hook kept him from opening kept it the treble from popping back off. So he was snagged more than he was hooked, right? But it's kind of cool. It's hard to explain, but it was really cool. So I was able to bring him in the boat and that kind of stuff, and they're slimy, stinky fish, but they're a lot of fun.
Me and Zach went down that stretch you mentioned before, I think. Isabella to Milford, right?
Yeah.
We went to Milford, from Milford to Bass Island.
Oh,
okay. I couldn't remember which one it was, but me and him both caught our first gar on that trip.
Yeah.
I think. And then another time I was fishing topwater for smallmouth again on the Little Miami. I ended up catching a gar on topwater.
Wow.
Pulled it through the rapids towards me. It was the weirdest thing. I pulled it out.
Yeah.
Wow. That was weird.
Generally, if you see a big area, there's a lot of gar. You're not going to find really a lot of smallmouth around there.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
We didn't waste much time.
Predatory fish, they run off the other ones.
Yeah, they run off. Yep. You're not going to hang out where an alligator's at, right? So
same thing with turtles. It seems like you see a lot of turtles in the area. There's no fish. There's no bass.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
I've been carp fishing and cat fishing before at Stone Lick Lake, actually. And I remember a time where I would do good in the morning and maybe catch a carp, a couple catfish. And then as soon as you saw those turtles moving into your area, because I would bait, I would throw chum for the catfish and the carp. As soon as you saw the turtles move in, dude, the fishing was done.
Oh, wow. Dude, Stone Lick's got so many carp.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first place I actually have ever paddled and was hitting carp as I was paddling. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that was insane. So that was when me and you and John went out.
Yeah.
So I had them hitting my drive underneath. They would swim around, knock themselves inside of my flex drive and stuff. Yeah, it was crazy.
Another question I had was, you were using your Blue Sky, and I know John was out on the Hobie. Now, any kayaks with those drives underneath, how well do they perform in the river? I would almost imagine some parts of those rivers be too shallow for any kind of drive.
Well, that's a great point. John had brought his Hobie. He was going to bring his wilderness pedal drive, but then he brought his Hobie. And there's a couple. If you're not paying attention and you're in anything like a Hobie or anything that doesn't have a retractable drive, you really have to pay attention. You're in big trouble because it will shallow up really fast on you.
Yeah.
And he did bend his drive.
Wow.
And so he was able to bend it back, thankfully. But we're talking about lucky crankbait Johnny. I mean, it sounds, it sucks. He bent it before and he just won a brand new thousand, whatever, right? So he's fine, you know, and he brought his old drive, not his new one. So, and I did forewarn him and say, hey, if you take your Hobie, be careful because if you don't pull it out, you're trashed. You know, you're going to get beat up. So with anything like a Jackson that has a Jackson flex drive, it's not something you have to worry about. Because it's retractable. It's got like a skid plate, and the rudders actually just sits above the skid plate. So anything that you hit is going to hit that plate and retract your drive up into the hull. So for me, it's not even a concern. You know.
Yeah,
so
that Jackson prop's awesome.
Yeah, the 2-bladed prop, and then the retractable prop itself is phenomenal. So you got to think even. We're talking about John and his Hobie. One of the things he mentioned, he's like, you can flutter the pedals and make the pedals, I guess, go flat. Is that Zach? You got one? Is that right?
Yeah.
But you still got something that's sticking out. I mean, there's still going to be something that you can actually tear up. The Jackson, you don't have to worry about that. It's all the way up inside the hull, so there's none of that, and you don't have to stop pedaling. So you're pedaling, you hit something, the prop goes up into the hull. You clear what you're hitting, you slide whatever it, hit a lever, and go back down and keep pedaling again, and you're gone. I mean, it's and what an ingenious way to come up with something like that. That's a perfect design for any kind of water application, you know.
Yeah.
So it works out real well.
Wow.
Well, Zach, you got any more questions? We got a few minutes here left.
Yeah, I know we sort of our subject for the year right now is summertime fishing. What do you think those smallmouth are doing in the summertime? You think they're changing their patterns any for the rest of the year, or do you have any thoughts of maybe summertime fishing the rivers or lakes?
Like
what are those smallmouth when the heat of the day is burning down on them?
They're usually going to hit for shade and cover.
Yeah.
Right, because shade's going to present the cool water, or they're going to move into the fast water because fast water is cooler water as well. But again, you know, my smallmouth bass experience comes strictly from the Little Miami River, and I know that they're always going to be in current or shade or structure. It's a shallow river, so if it's hot, they're not going to bite. They're not going to feel like biting, right? But if the water's cooled down, that's really, you know, the best time to fish that's either morning or evenings. You know, if it's dead heat afternoon, you may get lucky and find one, but they're really not going to hit. So too much.
Do they ever maybe move into the deeper water like they do in the wintering holes?
Yeah, they will. They're a large smallmouth bass on the Little Miami River will have that an entire area to itself because it's a mean sucker and it's going to chase off anything else. So, you know, one thing I tell people, if you're throwing and you're not catching anything, there's a big one in that area. Right. Huh. So if you're throwing and you catch a lot of small ones, there's not a big one in that area. So then you got to figure out what's he want, how's he want it, you know, what time of day is it? Is the water too warm? Is the water too cold? What's going on? Why isn't he hitting? You know, and then that's where you want to start searching for structure. You want to start changing your bait presentations, make sure it's as natural as possible. So yeah. But yeah,
summertime where we go through a few weeks or months where we don't have a lot of rain, and I've seen that river real low, running as fast as it normally does. And I would imagine those fish would be down in the deeper holes trying to find holes in that situation.
Well, yes and no, because some of the stretches, if there's a deep hole that's attached to skinny water, yes. But if that smallmouth is trapped in skinny water and doesn't have access to a deep hole, then the answer is no. So that's really kind of subjective. You know what I mean? So let's say you have a skinny pool from rapid A to rapid B. Well, it can't get through the rapids, maybe because the rapids are too shallow. Yeah. Right. So it's stuck in that area. So then you want to start looking for structure, underbank opening, stuff like that. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. Just generally fish will go deeper when the water warms up to cool down. They'll go under ledges. They're going to go over river banks. They're going to go under structure, wherever they're going to find it's cooler or moving fast water, so they can cool down because the water is always faster as it moves, or it's always cooler as it moves faster. So.
Hey, Good thing about the river is it never really gets above like 80 degrees anyway, I noticed.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's not too
I
big of
love
an
the
issue.
Guys are definitely the river guys. I've been on the river a few times with Brad. I mainly stick to lakes, but I like to do the river runs too. Don't get me wrong, but that's still a field of learning for me right now. Is learning the rivers around here.
I challenge anybody to go out to the river. I mean, some of the best experience I've ever had in my entire life fishing have come from the river, and not necessarily from the fish itself. Like this one, I think maybe I posted this a few months ago. The big rig I had at the time was on this embankment, right? It was going like this, and I was pulling it down. So when I got on the water, it was one of the mornings where the water was cooler than the air temperature, so it was like this fog raising up, right? And I just got on the water, and I was just getting my gear in order, and I was just drinking some coffee. And the sound of the water, the smell is like a real earthy smell, the sound of the water, the birds, the smell of the water. Then all of a sudden these deer come down, and it wasn't just like a couple adult deer. It was like a mom and dad and, a bucket of doe and a bunch of little baby deer. And they came out. And so the deer were just playing in the water, running around. And the other two grown deer were drinking the water and stuff like that. And I was like, man, what a cool view this is. And I have a video of that too. But then they just started running across the water playing. And I'm like, this is something you don't see every day. You gotta, I challenge everybody to wake up early, get on the water at 5 a.m., let the sun come up, and just stop. Just don't fish, just stop and soak it all in, and look at what's going on around you, listen, and the smells and the sounds and the sights, and just, man, it'll change you. It'll change your life. Absolutely.
I think people get so caught up in tournament fishing and being a presence on social media and trying to get sponsors, and people forget that, man. It's fishing. It's like you said, it's going out there on the water when the steam is rolling up off the water and you hear the birds chirping, you hear Mr. Bullfrog croaking. I mean, that's what it's all about for me. That's what I love the most about it. It's the adventure of going to new places, seeing new sights. And like we were just at Paint Creek a few weeks ago, and those big stone walls and giant boulders coming out the side of the hills and little waterfalls, and sitting there just taking a moment to listen to the waterfall flowing. And
absolutely,
a lot of people, we need to remember that. That's the reason why we're getting out on the water. Whether you catch a fish or you catch 100 fish or you go home skunked, man, it was still a quality day on the water, getting your mind right.
Absolutely.
That is definitely why I'm a river guy. I think the river is the best opportunity to offer all what you just said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the Little Miami River doesn't offer. There's some big smallmouth. It doesn't offer the biggest and best quality smallmouth, but it does offer. For me, it's something I even posted on Facebook. It's something spiritual. Something just draws me there. It connects to me, kind of resets me, reminds me of my place, kind of in the world. It's. I have a corporate career that I do during the day, and then this fishing hustle and all this stuff I do, and for me it reminds me to just breathe, man, take it all in, because at the end of the day you're here because of what's around you, and the running water. One of my favorite movies is A River Runs Through It. I don't know if you guys ever seen that. Phenomenal movie. It's phenomenal, and I love watching that movie every year because it just kind of reminds you, man, slow down, breathe, enjoy what you're doing, and just fish. Forget about the Facebook, forget about the sponsorships, forget about being on the teams, forget about the kind of kayak you're in, forget about the crap's going on at home or the crap's going on at your job, or forget about it all, man, and just let it go. Just breathe, listen, and relax. And that's what it's about, man. And that's why I'm hooked to it,
Deeper in therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I got one more question that me and Brad try to ask all our guests. And that's, what's your craziest fishing story? I mean, what's the funniest, interesting?
Oh, man.
What the F kind of story? You know what I mean?
Well, I think we already heard that at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, that was definitely probably it right there. I mean, that's, when you try to get out for the first time and go kayaking and it almost kills you, Yeah.
Well, you have like a funny story, at least?
Yeah. Yeah, so me and a couple of buddies were fishing the lake, and this didn't happen to me, but it was something I witnessed happen to them, right? So it was 4 buddies, and me and another buddy we're kind of separate from my other two friends. So you imagine we're on the lake. I'm like over here. My one buddy's here. My two other buddies are right here beside each other. And so, and we're catfishing, and this dude's rod goes down. It's gone, right? And the drag singing. And so he gets up and sets the hook. But when he does it, somehow he left his clicker open or his bail open. So when he set the hook, it just backlashed. He just whole nasty thing. And so my friend that's right beside him runs over. He says, "Here, let me help you. And so it was like the two stooges trying to figure out what the hell's going on. They got this big catfish on the end of the line. And so finally they just start reeling, bird's nest and all. They start reeling it in. And then the reel stops working, right? It's so bird nested they can't reel it anymore. They have a 30-pound channel head on the end of the line. And so my friend starts grabbing the line, starts bringing it in. And so, they finally get it towards the bank, and my buddy holds the pole and is grabbing the line. My other buddy's trying to net the damn thing, and he couldn't get the net under it, knocked the hook out, and there went the fish. I was like, you gotta be kidding, man. So it was like this 15-minute cluster. And it's still something, it happened probably 15 years ago, and it's something I still think is absolutely funny, watching the two dudes. Funny. So yeah, it was just like a comedian hour there. It was great, man.
That was before cell phones, so you couldn't get a video of it.
Yeah, so we had the Nokias, what I mean? Yeah. So back then, but yeah, it was great. That was probably my funniest fishing moment, and then the scariest was me. So my first Father's Day, the first time I was ever a dad, I almost losing my life on Father's Day. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I know me and Zach both appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Yeah. It's been fun, and we've been wanting to get you on for a while. So
yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime, man. We can talk. We need to have a river outing.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're a great guy, man, and you're a good friend. I've had a lot of fun kayaking with you, and hopefully we do some more trips this summer. Hopefully we have you on the show again, man.
Yeah, we can talk about blue sky.
Crazy adventures,
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So, who do we have on next?
Rob Orr is next, and
I love that guy.
About doing that podcast on his boat on East Fork.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to.
Work, but we might try to make it work.
Well, we'll set it up. So next week, I think it's going to be all about hybrid fishing. So.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely the guy, dude. He's the hybrid master. I mean, I've been to his house, and I've been fortunate enough to see his setup, and when you walk into his house, it's like walking in a Bass Pro. It'll blow your mind. I mean, this guy knows so much. Yeah,
he's a very secretive guy, though. But he might be kind of reluctant and giving away a lot of information. But I'm hoping we can talk a little bit about the hybrid fishing, maybe some catfish, and maybe he can share some secrets with us.
Yeah, he hates all other species. If it's not a hybrid, he doesn't like them. So, yeah, he's a good guy, man. He's a great guy. He's a conversationist, so he definitely carry on conversation with you and educate you. And he's a super cool dude, man.
That's definitely what we're here for.
Coming up too.
What's that?
We got Steve Coomer coming up here in a few weeks too. We're going to talk about Little Miami River
conservation.
Talk about his conservation. Talk about his book. Talk about Vic Coomer lures. I think that'd be an awesome episode.
He's a good guy too, man. Steve's great, and what a that individual's done so much for our Little Miami River and our waterways and bringing awareness and stuff like that. So, speaking of it, it's looking like September 14th is going to be the rerun for our river tournament, our first annual Little Miami River Smallmouth Bass Tournament.
I'll be there.
The 14th, the reason I'm picking the 14th is because that's the same day as a 12-hour online Buckeye Kayak Fishing Trail Smallmouth Tournament. So whatever you catch on our tournament, it will count for theirs as well. Double up.
Yeah.
So Brad, I'll be getting with you, getting the team together and get some things rolling there. So
sounds good. All right. Well, I guess we'll end it here. So it seems like a perfect spot to end it, and we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for listening, guys. More to come.
Woo! All right, we'll have a new episode for you guys next Monday. Have a good one.
All right, y'all. Take care, man.